thick ceiling fan spun overhead, sluggish against the 15-degree Mumbai heat. But even that mechanical drone could not drown out my humiliation. My hands trembled as I stood before the half-moon jury, their stony gazes fixed on my projection. The screen glowed with a lifeline I'd built, writhing rivers of data, colors bleeding into one another, stories cradled in code. It was supposed to move them, but instead I heard the scrape of sandal against tile. Then the dry cough of Dr. Rao, his signal that my time was up. I tried to go on. Words stumbled out, bruised and breathy. I caught my own reflection, damp brow, the buttons of my borrowed shirt uneven, bouncing off the empty windows behind the judges. I wanted to explain how this pattern, absent and present in migration data, actually mapped the city's heartbeat during monsoon season. I wanted to show them how chaos bent into beauty. All I saw were unimpressed faces. Enough. Miss Joshi, Dr. Rao said. He looked over his thin glasses, voice sharp and final. Art is not numbers. You may sit. Dispersed laughter flickered behind me, colleagues, but mostly competitors. A burning ache at the base of my throat. I saw Tara's sympathetic frown, but even that felt like pity. The digital river died behind me, and I sat hard, hands buried beneath my thighs. I remembered every agonizing syllable as I trudged out past the same old college banyan tree, bag thumping against my hip. The heat slicked my skin, and my own humiliation curled around me like a second shirt. I went home before dusk. Our building was concrete, monsoon-stained, baking from late April sun. My mother was shelling peas at the kitchen window, rolling up the thin mesh screen to let in whatever limp breeze there was. She glanced back. I tried to hold myself together, but my jaw clamped down, teeth grinding. I told her what happened, word by word, small and brittle. She shrugged. You can always teach, Betty, she said, gathering green husks in her palm. Or work for a bank. Numbers should be useful, nah? Not. She shook her head. Not this. Even my little brother, Anand, only snorted. Who's going to pay you to draw graphs? Later, my aunties came for evening tea. They perched around our formica table, peeling oranges and speculating. You want to do modern art with computers? Auntie Leela asked, eyebrow arched. Will you paint the ceiling of an IT office, Beta? The laughter was gentle. It came from love, perhaps, but it felt like salt on raw skin. Only my grandmother, eyes faded by the cataract, said nothing. She squeezed my hand later, papery fingers on my wrist, but said only, You will find your own way. You are steel. Remember that. But steel bends. I broke for a while, night after night. Crammed between Anand's Pokemon posters and my own crumpled sketches, I chewed the words failure until they tasted of metal and bile. The weeks rolled on. My mother found me ads for positions at coaching classes, bankers, auditors, tutors. Each practical suggestion landed like a slap. Even Tara, cautious and kind, began to ask, why not apply to TCS or Infosys, just for a year or two? Everyone in our lane seemed to agree it was time for settling down. Especially as rejections piled in. A gallery smiled politely but said, This isn't art. Tech jobs looked at my datasets as if they were scribbles in a diary. Meanwhile, Anand mashed the controller, slaying digital monsters. He had a future mapped in medicine, all laid out by others. I woke some nights, the ceiling leaking at the seam, feeling useless. But I would open my laptop. I would sit staring at my code, listening for the city's rhythm, the sharp wail of a train, the rustle of the almond tree outside, the steady beep of auto rickshaws below. I drew anew, shaping datasets until they sang. I tried again and again, submitting everywhere, to shows and grants. Silence answered most of my attempts, but I kept at it, hands trembling over the keys. Then came an email with the subject line, Data Art Fellowship, Finalist Notification. Just one small line, sandwiched between promotional offers and a warning from my bank. I wasn't sure if it was spam, but it wasn't. A European foundation was flying in 3 finalists to present a project proposal in Berlin, of all places. The odds stank of lottery tickets and broken dreams, but my grandmother pressed 2,000 rupees into my palm when I told her. Go, she said simply. So I did. My family watched as I packed, skepticism stitched into every exchange. Don't expect too much, my mother said. Otherwise you will be sad again, nah? I nodded because it was easier. Berlin was a jolt, a place so cold and wide and precise. I wore my best, carried my work on a USB that seemed fragile as glass. Before the panel, I reminded myself of Mumbai's chaos, the heave of Monsoon's stunned streets. My fingers quaked as I spoke, but I did not break this time. Instead of reciting, I told them a story, how families search for safe, dry ground every June. And how their pulses flowed through my art. I felt them lean forward. A month later, I found out I'd been chosen. The foundation wanted to fund my first solo show. It was small, just a year of work, enough to carve out breathing space, and my stipend would barely stretch in rupees. But it was a start, a verdict. I wrote to my mother from a clean, rain-shuttered apartment I shared with 2 Polish mathematicians. She replied, "Proud of you, John," but her texts were clipped, cautious, as if my success might evaporate. My show comprised 4 large installations. LED panels ran shimmering, high-frequency pulses of color. Mumbai's monsoon mapped in millions of migrant cell phone signals, overlaid with the city's sewer maps and news scrolls from the years of great floods. Visitors paused. Some wept, tracing lines that sketched ancestral homes. Others snapped photos and sent me messages. Strangers recognized their own stories in my abstractions. Talks followed, a commission here and there in other cities, Amsterdam, Singapore. 2 years passed. I learned to pour emotion into my work, but never lost the steel at my core. All that while, Mumbai drifted behind a smog screen. I missed its cut fruit carts and the slow dusk on Marine Drive, though I learned to cherish the taste of separation too. I saw photographs of Anand's college admission, my mother's graying hair, my father's retirement puja, in bits and pixels, always with distance. 3 years, and I knew it was time to return. It wasn't some victorious homecoming, none of that cinematic longing. Just a tired need to see my city again. There was a show, this time at a new gallery in Colaba. They'd asked me to ship 3 of my pieces, one of which had been reviewed by a London paper. It was the sort of miracle that would finally be concrete, even to the most stubborn of my skeptics. I arrived on the red-eye flight, suitcase hard-edged and overstuffed. Mumbai hit me with clammy arms out of the plane, salt air and wet, diesel-laced wind. I slept a little in the taxi, dizzy from the 11-hour plane ride and the pounding in my chest, dreams snagged on memory. My mother met me on the threshold, sari already fragrant with turmeric and anise. Hair tied back tight. For a heartbeat, she wasn't older, only familiar, and I stepped into the flat's heat and found it unchanged, the buzz of the fridge, the rattle of fans. But Anand was taller now, the childish chub leached from his jaw, eyes still flinty with skepticism. The show was opening Thursday. That Sunday, my mother announced, "We will all go, even your uncle and aunties." She said it with resignation, as if preparing for a dull school play. I busied myself in rehearsals, aligning the art, tweaking the code so the data would flow right, checking the timing of the light pulses. Sometimes fear iced my stomach. If this flopped here, in my city, who would care what outsiders thought? On the opening night, the sky was bruised with pre-monsoon clouds, heat pressing into the pavement along Kolaba Causeway. The gallery was glass-fronted, cool with precise, chilly light. I saw my mother fidget by the door, a nun jammed into a blue shirt, uncles and aunties arriving in pairs, their sensible shoes squelching on just-washed marble. Inside, the installations glowed on the far wall. They looked almost alien.